Hello, making a putty video. Last night I was watching an interview with a very nice young man who interviews people who suffer from different neurological or mental disorders. And really like his channel. I'll put the links under my video. And he was interviewing Daniel, a war veteran. And when I watched Daniel and what he was talking about, he was talking about his PTSD and schizophrenia symptoms and voices and living with extreme fear and depression every day, from trauma, from being deployed in the Middle East, a war that was conducted coming from the oil industries, the oil corporations like Halliburton, which Barack Obama is part of, and Dick Cheney. And they're invading the Middle East, causing more violence, more hatred towards the United States. It was the Obama administration and the Bush administration who caused this hatred towards the United States. And people like Daniel deployed there, innocent people who think they are somehow helping this country and helping to straighten things out in the world. They're misled. They're not informed, of course, by anyone who would inform them, right, about the actual truths that the corporate agenda is using them, is exploiting them to the fullest to invade other countries so that they can lay oil pipelines in the Middle East. It's horrific, and destroying people's lives. Not just their lives, they are making them suffer for the rest of their lives, for 80 years. So suffer with PTSD, horrible shock, trauma that they have to deal with every day and every night. It can cause schizophrenia and psychosis, panic attacks. And so Daniel is a very courageous young man who talks about this, who shares this journey with the public openly, knowing that it will help other people. It will make the world a better place when we share these things with others. It takes a lot of courage. This is a very strong man, a very amazing mind, highly intelligent, highly artistic, highly sensitive person. Taking that journey, living this experience so that he can help everyone out there. And we can bring a message across that we must end war. We must end the military. In that sense, in that sense of, deployment in other countries for the purpose of corporate enrichment. We need the military only in terms of self-defense. And right now we have a war within this country, okay, and we need the military for that self-defense. So when I was listening to Daniel, I was crying rivers the whole time. Every video I watch that he made, every conversation, every interview, I cry rivers non-stop. I sob. And immediately that horse, that one very lonely horse came to my mind. Okay. That is the same energy. Okay. Daniel and the lonely horse in the desert, they share the same energy and the same trauma. We were there for a couple of days and we visited that lonely horse. The horse was very afraid of me in the beginning because he was traumatized by people. He did not take the apple. He didn't even know what an apple was. Probably never been given an apple in his entire life. So, but when I came back, he was happy to see me and he came over. And then the next day, he came over very quickly and he was bubbling and making greeting sounds. And he leaned himself all the way against that wire fence. He wanted to be as close to me as possible. That is how alone and lonely he is. And I tickled his lip a little bit through that fence, and he liked that. And we had this contact, this communication. And I feel so deeply for that horse and for Daniel. Okay. And so he was scratching with his hoof at the edge of that fence on the bottom, and he was looking over to the other side of the fence where there were these oats growing, wild oats. So I picked up the wild oats and I fed him one oat grain at the time through that fence. And he ate those. He was chewing those, and he was grateful that I was feeding them to him through that really, really narrow wire fence that had these squares. And I hung out with him for a while, and then we finally had to leave, and we finally had to go back to our house. And I just keep thinking about that lonely horse, praying to the blue God to protect the lonely horse and all beings. And I feel very deeply for that Daniel, for what he has been through, the trauma in the military. He said he had 7 concussions, something like that. Serious head injury, which left him mainly psychologically traumatized. And other injuries, and so he finally was released because of his trauma and all of this. But the trauma did not go anywhere. The experience is still there in the brain, in the whole body. Memories, flashbacks, all of this, nightmares. He gets comfort from his stuffed animals. He's a very courageous and artistic brain. Artistic mind, artistic young man. Strong, big, young man, and yet traumatized to that point of hearing voices and extreme terror in the head. And I can relate to that very much because I too was traumatized as a child. I don't have memories, I only have drawings that I made as a child. And these drawings, they were exactly the same as the drawings from victims of satanic cult abuse and severe rape at a very young age. I have no memories at all. This is a retrograde amnesia, but I have these images. I had like these individual images and trauma scene images. White bathroom tiles and a very large vulture type of ghost looking at a little girl in the bathroom with these yellow eyes. Lots and lots of paintings like this. Tons. So I'm not going to get further into this now. I'll talk about this another time. But I can so fully relate to Daniel when it comes to psychology and trauma. I cannot imagine how it would be for me if I had been in a combat zone. I don't think I would have survived that. I would not have survived that. I would, if I was forced into a combat zone, first thing I would do is I would walk out there towards the enemy and let myself be gunned down because I couldn't take it. There'd be no way, no chance. I could not stand it. I couldn't stand it for a second, alive like that. And he tried to commit suicide several times after he had been in that war out in the Middle East. The United States invading Middle Eastern countries for profit, and the soldiers believing the lies because that's all they knew, that's all they were told. Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning, they shed some light onto it, into that situation with the US military. Chelsea Manning gave Julian Assange those video films that the US military made in Iraq, where the US military shot just regular civilians that were even unarmed. Why did they do that? Yeah. So, and just because Julian Assange publicized that for the world to see, because everyone has the right to know the truth when there is abuse going on like that. When there is abuse, people have the right to know. Because how else can we fix it? Okay, if we don't even know what's going on. And for that, he has been incarcerated in England by Boris Johnson. And they tortured him by putting him into a dark chamber, into solitary confinement and total darkness. And who knows what else they did. Horrific. And the reason why they're keeping him there is because they know that if they extradited him to the United States, that Donald Trump would pardon him. Because he would. Because Donald Trump is for peace. And he is for fixing the military. He is for fixing those problems where there's abuse happening. So he would pardon him. And they know that very well. Boris Johnson knows that very well. And I believe that Boris Johnson is being paid by the corporate agenda for keeping Julian Assange imprisoned in England, in that high security prison where he does not belong. An innocent, peaceful, very peaceful, loving man, a peace activist, an animal rights activist, an environmentalist, a peaceful man who makes the world a better place, locked up in a high security prison for telling the truth. Julian and Chelsea need to be freed. Okay. Very important. So I was crying and crying and crying, listening to Daniel. And then he was talking about a recent suicide attempt. He was about to jump down from a bridge. I think it was some kind of bridge, and police officers yanked him away and they threw him brutally onto the pavement and brutally handcuffed him and kept him in solitary confinement. Punished him for already having been punished. Punished him for being suicidal. All of this it's beyond words. The injustice, the cruelty is beyond words. The system is broken, and he recognizes that. He talks about that. Our entire system, medical system, jurisdiction system is broken. It doesn't function, it doesn't work. It's important to talk about this. It's very important to shed light onto the problems in society. Very, very important to talk about all of this. Very courageous of Daniel to talk about all of this. That's work that makes the world a better place. That helps people, that helps bring awareness, that makes people feel like there's someone else who understands them. people who would be too afraid to talk about any of this. Most people are too afraid to talk about this. Those deepest worries and fears and needs and loneliness. They're too afraid. Because most people have been bullied as children, particularly boys have been bullied by their fathers. I see this all the time when I talk about these kind of things to people. And some have shared that with me. I find it very courageous whenever someone is willing to share that and willing to open up about that. There's a raven out there and the blue god eye and the ocean and the sunset. That's wonderful. I can hear the waves. And it's wonderful to create something. Wonderful to hang stuff on the wall, to make a collage, to make an artwork. Wonderful to express yourself through some crafts, something that you create. Very healing. I recommend this to everyone. And my goal for the world is to have 4 different types of therapy centers. One that's open to the public. One that is for drug addicts. One that is for cluster A people, that includes homeless people. And one that is for cluster B people, for all the violent criminals, dangerous people. So each help center has their own focus and their specific staff to help to take care of that situation, to take care of those people in the appropriate ways. Peacefully, gently, but firmly. And people want that. They want to be held, basically. Even the criminals ultimately want someone to catch them and hold them with a firm grip. Because they know that their minds have derailed and that they are falling into an abyss. And they need people to catch them and hold them. And help them heal. That's what needs to happen. I talked about this before in more detail on my channel, Clay and Putty Videos. I have several videos on that channel where I talk about each individual therapy center. But I think about this all the time, and I am trying to develop this, at least theoretically, hoping that maybe someday we have the chance to set something like this up worldwide, so that we have those 4 therapy center types in each community. Have 4 of those, and in each, kind of like in each district and each small town, each neighborhood. Instead of churches, have that, because that will really help people, and that will really heal this entire world that we live in. It will heal people, and it will make our world peaceful and good. And we can turn everything around that's not going anywhere. We can fix all the problems through that. So you guys take care. Bye bye.